Good Monday morning, everyone. Let me turn my rock and roll off. I'm having too much fun on this Monday morning. Welcome to No More Mondays. This is the show where we believe that humans still matter. Mediocrity is expensive, but if you take ownership, you can change everything. As always, I am your host, Angie Callen, and today I am joined by Melissa Hughes, who I'm so excited to catch up with and have a conversation that all of you get to listen into. She is a speaker, author, and somebody who helps people find and use their voice in this world where it can feel very difficult to be heard. Melissa's work focuses on helping people show up, share what matters to them, and actually make genuine connections with others instead of just putting more content into what has become the sea of sameness. From why we hold back to what it costs us to play small and what actually changes when we decide to get out there and be ourselves. Melissa and I are going to cover it all and help you build confidence in putting your voice out there. Melissa, welcome to No More Mondays.
Wow, I love that, Angie. Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
I am excited. And for those of you that tune in regularly, Melissa's part of the unconference crew. I definitely get feedback from like the little pods of people that I gather at events. And so if you've been tuning in lately, we've had a series of unconference guests, and Melissa is one of them. And we were just before we started recording talking about the fact that she and I had started having a really great conversation and then got pulled apart and never got to revisit it. So you all now get to listen into phase 2 of that. So again, Melissa, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here.
So, in this whole idea of, let's say, personal branding, content creation, whether you have a business or you're a professional just trying to be a thought leader, there's like infinite places you can be and very few where it feels like you can actually be seen, heard, and share ideas. I think sometimes that's even true with like in our physical, personal circles. And so a lot of times it's easy to just like hold ourselves back. Even those of us that are like really capable, successful people, I talk to a lot of people who are like, I don't want to put that out there. I might look dumb. And so I'm curious what you see in this front and where you see the hesitation coming from.
Yeah, this is so good. It's funny because like when I got into this whole thing, I kind of realized my own journey and putting myself out there. I had a video that accidentally went viral and then kind of felt like I was like, well, this is kind of a cool opportunity. I want to keep the momentum, and was aware of like the challenges that I had. And I'm a very extroverted person. I can talk to anybody. But I found that when I was putting content out online, I just was way overthinking how I was coming across. The moment that I'd go to hit publish, I'd think of like that one person that's going to misunderstand me. And I'd be like, I'm deleting this, And then I started realizing as I got into coaching and now I have an agency that like that experience is actually every single person's experience. And then it broadens out into a fear of looking stupid. They don't, you could have a Harvard degree. And I have talked to people with Harvard degrees. You could have a Harvard degree and you still feel like you're not credible enough. You're not an expert in the sea of voices. What does my voice even matter? And what it really boils down to, Angie, is this feeling of imposter syndrome.
Yep. And if you weren't going to name it, I was, because it's sitting right there. And I love how you got us into it.
Yeah, everybody's got it. Literally everyone. So.
And it actually does plague high achievers more. There's something like, I read about this a lot. Chris Kelso's been on the show. If you love what we're about to talk about with imposter syndrome, he's a friend of mine. Great episode to go and find and listen to. But like 70% of people sometime in their lifetime will experience it.
Yeah.
And it tends to plague high achievers most. And you're touching on some of why, but I'd love to go deeper and kind of get more into it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, I heard someone say this because as I was doing some research on it, because, in the branding world, one of the things that they say is like, what's the the number one problem that you solve? Can you name it in one word? So I remember doing that whole exercise and being like, is it clarity? Is it authentic? Like, what is it? And I kind of went on my own, like, okay, what am I feel like I'm helping people with the most? It's not content. It's not podcasting. It's not their message. It really is imposter syndrome. And so the way that you navigate imposter syndrome isn't like trying to be more confident or pumping yourself up and that kind of thing. It's actually through authenticity, which is scary. It's actually through being yourself and people would say, oh, just be yourself. That's so easy. But it is actually the most vulnerable, hard thing to own and to step into. So, we could talk about that, but that is the key. That is the antidote to imposter syndrome.
Oh, let's talk about that because this might be my perspective, or one thing that disrupts or exacerbates is probably the better word. Imposter syndrome is this, like, we get performative instead of like expressing our authentic voice, because the imposter syndrome says we shouldn't have the voice, and it becomes this vicious cycle. So how do we get out of that?
Oh my gosh. So there's so many things to say. Yeah, this could be like, this is, a whole 2-day workshop. But one of the things is doing a call out. So like a lot of times, for example, let's use the lady that, she's a Harvard graduate, has a high-end paying job, but does not feel like she is qualified enough to talk on her subject matter. Well, if that is how you feel, if that is actually what's authentic to you, then what would be authentic is to say, guys, I'm out here posting this video and it's my first time and I feel cringe city. I don't want to be here. These are my credentials and I still feel like I'm not playing with the big dogs. You just, like, whatever really truly is authentic for you, you just start there. And I think we think that, oh, we're going to lose credibility but no, people are actually drawn to the vulnerability attached
Yes.
to your authenticity. And so it's better to start and like do a call out if you're starting than to try to be like, I'm going to show up in this way and try to be like everybody else. So that's a good place to start, is to do a call out.
Yeah, name the thing.
Mhm.
And I think the vulnerability word is so important. And it's funny. I'm going to go way back to the beginning of how I read in this show, everyone, because Melissa just set up a really great example of why I believe that humans still matter, because we all do, and our voices all do, individually and as a collective. Mediocrity is expensive, because if you don't use your voice, you will end up paying in the form of regret. So it's not expensive money. It's expensive in either playing small, not reaching potential, regretting not taking a chance. And when you take ownership of what you have to offer, or of your voice, or of your vulnerability, it actually does change everything. So I don't just read those 3 lines because I think they're cute marketing. It's because I actually believe it. And this is a really good example of where it is true in perception versus reality, which I think is sometimes the battle that we fight with imposter syndrome. And here's a question that I have on the heels of this idea of like, call out the thing and be vulnerable. That can then create the next layer of like, oh, I'm going to be punished, right? Like
Oh,
authenticity can like be punished, or there'll still be blowback because I'm admitting
yeah.
a vulnerability.
Yeah.
How do we get ourselves to just not care about that either?
Yeah. And then you get to ask yourself this beautiful question, which is, well, what does that reveal about what I believe about myself? So, like, when I'm going through this journey of like, man, like, again, when I'm putting content out there and I'm feeling cringy and I'm thinking about all these people, I started to realize, wow, I really do care what people think about me. That's kind of a problem. That's kind of a problem if you're trying to be authentic, because then my voice, if I allow that to be the thing that holds me back, then I'll never actually say what I want to say, because I'm always pandering to what I think other people are going to misinterpret or interpret. So that's a problem. So I need to then self-reflect and think, well, why is that a problem? Get curious about myself, and then literally choose to overcome it by learning to be okay with being misunderstood, learning to be okay with, oh, they think I'm stupid. Well, that's their problem. Like, you just go on this whole self-discovery journey of
Yes.
getting set free. I say that, like, putting content out there, everybody thinks it's very self-promoting. I actually feel like it's been the number one thing that has helped me to become more myself, because I had to face like, oh wow, I actually do feel really cringy, or I do feel that. And I'm like, what is that? But why do okay, I need to figure that out. And so, I mean, it really does get kind of personal in that way, but I just think that it helps you to think about how you see yourself, what is triggering for you about that, and where does that come from?
This is so much more. This is about way more than just, oh, I want to be a thought leader, right? This is going to open up a pathway to levels of discovery, because you will come up against this, like, why do I think this? Why do I think what people care? Why am I hesitant to be this type of vulnerability? And your own example of the Harvard woman who feels like an imposter in her environment is a perfect example of where, as a woman in probably a male dominated space, which I have been, we tend to shapeshift into what we think we need to be instead of feeling like we can be our natural selves. And that actually creates the friction and creates the imposter syndrome, because we can't be the full expression of ourselves. But if you allow yourself to be that, the right people and the right opportunities do magnetize themselves to you.
They do. And I think what we also do subconsciously, and I think this is also the hard part of like owning your uniqueness, is we just can't see our own uniqueness. So the things that we're like, well, I'm not going to talk about that, or I'm not going to be like that. That's the thing. That's the thing that you should be like, that they do want to know. But we are so focused on we're so blindsided by other people's uniqueness that we just struggle to see our own. So it really does have to get, like, you kind of got to slow it down in order to like catch who you really are, and being able to be like, oh, actually, like, yeah, I guess I do make stupid jokes that other people don't laugh at. And so instead of being insecure about that, I'm just going to own it. I'm just going to totally own it. I thrived on TikTok because I'm so bad with aesthetics, and like, I would try in like the, 2017, I was trying to like make the aesthetic like perfect picture. And then like, something would happen and my daughter would like come and give me a hug, and I get spaghetti on my shirt. And I'm like, dang it. Like, I just always mess up. Or I'd go to make a post and there's a typo and someone's commenting being like, you spelled does wrong. And I'm like, I can't be perfect. So I started to lean into, I like messy content. I like bad content. I actually think bad content is more authentic than perfect. So I started to lean into more of the way that and it gave me freedom to show up better. So you just got to own your crap.
And own your crap is so, yes. Like, I actually think, side note, here comes first shameless plug for Scary Good Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries. I talk about this in here. And that is like what actually makes you unique, and just being okay with your weird, because comparison is the thief of joy. And that's what happens when you start comparing yourself to somebody else's unique and being like, oh, I'm not as special as that, so therefore I have no unique, right? It's like, it's all or nothing. We're either as cool as this unique person, or we have no unique abilities at all. But if you own your crap and you put it out there, it resonates, especially now, because the age of AI, everything is written to a median and it sounds that way. But if you've been able to find your voice, you actually do stand out. It's funny, Melissa, you bring up the mistake. About a month ago, I sent an email through an automation that should not have been scheduled, because it was just a template. And it had absolutely no content in it other than like placeholder images and like lorem ipsum text. I got more responses to that email, and they were actually like, hey, this link doesn't work. I want to go schedule something, right? I got more responses to that email than a legitimate email of content I wrote.
Yeah, because people know. And yeah, everybody is just very much, it's almost like we've pendulum swung, right? Like again, 2016, 2017, it was all about this perfect aesthetic. And now people are like, I really just want something real. And then you get the people that then like take videos of themselves crying. It's like, okay, listen.
Okay, that's too far.
We know you hit record. Okay. So just calm down. I
knew you were my person, Melissa.
Yeah.
There is a difference between vulnerability and oversharing.
Right. Yeah. Which, unless you're just naturally an oversharer, then own it.
And that's authentic, but most of that doesn't seem like it. Sorry, we're not shaming anyone.
No,
just
we're not shaming
make it authentic.
If you want to, now we're backpedaling, Angie. But here's the thing. I just think that the biggest thing when we're talking about imposter syndrome is this fear of looking stupid. It's this fear of not being credible enough. It's this fear of, really that we aren't good enough to be able to share. We're going to be found out as a fraud. But I think that there's just so much freedom in knowing who you are and who you're not and being okay with that. And then taking up that space. If we think about the population, 7 billion people on the planet, if you decided to go for like the 0.1% of your weird, your business would transform, your business would blow up. But we are just very much concerned about the 99% that's not going to resonate, that's not going to get us. But one of the things I found was very helpful, and I heard someone say this once, is when you talk to the camera, you just talk to the camera like you're talking to your best friend. Like,
Yep.
you talk to them like they're already your people. You don't try to over explain. You don't try to make sure that they're going to get it. You just know, like, I'm going to talk to you like you get it. And I'm not going to worry about the people that don't get it, because then they're just really not my people. And you start to actually find your people and grow a more authentic community, as opposed to, am I getting likes, comments, or shares?
Yeah, we kind of have to stop hiding behind a strategy and just say what we mean in the way that it naturally comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So I just think in 2026, the other thing that I think we should lean into is storytelling.
Yeah.
I think that also disarms the imposter syndrome, is when you just start like sharing your story, because it's what you know. It is your lived experience. It happened to you. You don't need a script, because it's you. And so, leaning into stories that are attached to lessons, or stories that are attached to just relatability. I think that is something that I think is going to become more and more important as people learn how to tell stories. That's going to set people apart from being just someone that's sharing to someone that's engaging.
This feels very aptly timed, because last week's episode was with Chad Peterson, who is the story catcher. And it was all about, he really focuses on what stories we need to recapture about ourselves, or what stories that we need to let go. But I love this theme of really thinking about our lived experience in stories, because it's also how humans communicate. There's a reason Jesus taught us in parables. And that's kind of how we remember and experience and relate to each other. And I think I love that as one like tip for how to just start showing up more like ourselves. So while we're in little activate mode here, what are some other little tiny things that we can do to start kind of leaning into our authenticity, our vulnerability, and just showing up and not overthinking it?
Yeah. I think it's interesting, because I think it's more, we want the tactics. And I know I'm talking to my person here, because you seem to be on the same page. But it's funny, because I feel like it starts with those small decisions, like wearing what you actually want to wear. It's like, it's more about embodying this thing of owning more of who you are. And so those like daily decisions, when someone asks you, where do you want to go for food? Rather than wherever you want to go, right? Rather than doing that, it's like, you know what? I want to go to McAllister's, because I love the pickles there, and I love their sandwiches, and that's where I want to go. And giving people the freedom, like they don't have to like McAllister's, but I like McAllister's. And if you want to go, we'll go there. So I think it's just this whole mindset of just really owning who you are in like little everyday decisions, so that when you go to make content, it's not this extra jump. It's just you, another extension of expressing yourself. Can I tell you a story, actually? A
Yes.
Vincent story?
Yes. Vincent
Okay.
is our mutual, is the father of the unconference. And so that is essentially how we met. Yes. Now I have to hear this.
Okay. So I actually use him as an example when we're talking about authenticity, because when I first met Vincent, he told me this story of how he went to this business event, this like prestigious business event, and he showed up in shorts and a t-shirt, or his Florida shirt, whatever he likes to wear. And he walks in, and all these other business guys in their suit and tie start kind of making fun of him. And they're like, nice shirt. Did you get the memo? Kind of like, what are you doing here? You look terrible. This is a business event and you look like a schmuck. And so Vincent's kind of standing there and he's just so unassuming, hands in his pocket. I'm probably totally dressing the story up because I love the drama of
It
it.
does it works. And if we
Yeah,
know
because it
Vincent,
works.
you're not
It's now
dressing this
become my
story up
story.
because this is spot on how he is.
Yeah. And he just kind of like stands there and he just goes, yeah, well, I didn't get into business and entrepreneurship to do what everybody else is doing. I got into it to create the life that I want to live. And I don't like suits.
And here's the thing.
Pause.
He totally means that. And the point I want to make at the heels of that story is that is actually authenticity, because there are some people who would walk into the room wearing that for shock value.
Right.
That's not authenticity. That is a marketing ploy. But in this case, we actually know this guy and he totally means that. And that is like the foundation he lives life on.
Right. And it didn't come like he's not trying to be off. It's just he likes his shorts and his shirt and he doesn't care if you don't. And so I think when we're thinking about authenticity, it's not that we're like, we don't care what anybody thinks, but I think it's just this comfortable level that you've just become comfortable with who you are. You're not willing to betray yourself to make other people feel more comfortable. You're like, no, this is just who I am. Take me or leave me. I'm going to show up and, I'm kind. I'm here. I'm present, but I'm not going to overextend myself because you do or don't like it. It's just, and that is the core of imposter syndrome, is this feeling of, wanting to belong. But when you can belong to yourself, for me, I'm a believer. I belong to, Jesus, like he names me. Like when you can have that sense of belonging inside of you and it doesn't belong to anyone else, I think that's the birthplace of where you can really start to be authentic.
And I love that there's a content storyline here, but there's a much bigger human in life storyline here. Sometimes you will arrive at it via just wanting to start content, as we stated earlier, right? Be careful what you wish for, because you could end up in the greatest exploration and self-discovery that you never asked for, but you will be whole human for it. And to me, this is like, this is what changes when we have our self-acceptance. And to me, it isn't about take it or leave it. I'm going to intentionally make somebody uncomfortable.
Right.
But it's being comfortable with who we are and how that expresses and how that relates to other people. There might be situations where we have to make a slight shift of context, right? You're in a job interview, dress it up with a pretty bow, right? Or you're on stage, presenter mode, but I'm still the same person. I'm just approaching it in context. And that to me is where we start to kind of get rid of the imposter syndrome, because we know that we do belong in the space. And that could mean all of the spaces, physical and otherwise, that we've stepped into. And it's such a beautiful place to experience, in all honesty. That sounds like the woo-wooest thing I ever say, but it really is.
No, it really truly is. And I think, when we're talking about building a personal brand, it's got to be personal to you, which means like what you just said of going on this personal development journey. It really is that you're kind of like, what do I like? What do I not like? How am I going to represent myself? What is my reputation? How do I come across? What am I known for? It was so interesting when I was kind of going on this journey, because you're not really aware of how you come into the world. And I just remember thinking about when I worked at the bank and I had this customer every day. He'd come in, he'd be like, sunshine and Skittles. How's your day? Because apparently I'm, hello.
You're sunshine and Skittles.
I'm sunshine and Skittles.
Melissa, and I don't know that I'd be mad about it.
Yeah. Right. So, there's something about sunshine and Skittles, about my brand, that it is happy. And I could be afraid that people will think, oh, she doesn't have depth. She doesn't have the authentic, she's happy clappy. Well, maybe, but I'm going to attract my other happy clappy people, and we're going to be happy clappy in our little happy clappy corner. But I think we just need to really be like, again, owning ourselves and stepping into our personal brand in a way that feels like us.
And what I find is interesting about this, and I think there's a difference. This is the flip side of the coin, or maybe just a different way to synthesize what you said about sunshine and Skittles is, some people feel like you can't speak, like we can't speak our mind, or I can't just show up and say what I think because it might be like abrasive or something like that. But if it is really genuine, it isn't. I like to think that I have figured out how to be like tactfully direct and kind. And for some reason it works, right? I have been told, Angie, you are great at telling people stuff they don't want to hear. Now there's a sandwich technique to that. But I think if it comes from a place of like love, kindness, and maybe even like generosity, there is like this through line of genuine communication that makes it really easy to receive the information flow that is, hey, here's what I think. Here's where I want to go. Without you feeling like, oh, well, I'm driving my agenda. It's just so strange how that actually just works.
Yeah, that's so good, Angie. I think, again, it really, I would just remember someone saying, like, when they're reading a caption or something, you can just tell, like, is, the heart behind it, the position behind it. And so, not to get woo woo, like you were saying, but it really does come down to a heart condition and how comfortable you are. Do you care for people? Do you love people? Are you kind? Just, it all matters. And getting to know your passions, what make you mad, what breaks your heart, what do you stand for? And so one of the things that I like to say, instead of finding your voice, I would say, trust your voice. Really trust. That's the other thing, is people are just so afraid that what they say doesn't come across clear, or what they say people aren't going to get. But the more that you can ditch the script and just say it, fumble your way through, trust it's going to come out. The more that you practice and trust your voice, the more that you'll show up with clarity, with conviction, with confidence, and that's attractive.
Well, Melissa does better episode summaries than I do. How's that? That's a perfect way to me, wrap up and put a really important exclamation point on the end. I love this conversation. And it's funny because there's a level of woo, but practicality to it. And as a former engineer who loves people, I appreciate having an analytical brain with woo-woo tendencies. And to me, everything we've talked about it's this idea of being seen and heard, but that isn't a strategy. It isn't actually like a level, right? It's not being louder. It's really be honest with who you are, how you show up. And I love the exclamation point that is trust your voice. And I'm actually going to take it one step further. Trust yourself.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
And what you have to give to this world. So, Melissa, if everybody out there is like, oh man, I got to go talk to Melissa because I don't know my voice. How do people find you and learn more about your work?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Melissa Lee Hughes, and that's LEA. So come and say hi. Actually, though, I might not respond right away because I try to cut it off at 3:30 when I go get my kids, but I will respond. But yeah, my handle is Melissa Lee Hughes. My email is melissa@melissaleehughes, or my website, melissaleehughes.com.
Which we will link all of that in the show notes at nomoremondays.info. And Melissa, as we wrap up, one of the things I always like to leave everyone with is just, one little tidbit or pearl of wisdom on, the future is changing and it feels harder to be human in it. How can we humans stay human while navigating the world around us?
Yeah, I would say the first phrase that came into my mind was stop it. You know what to do. And what I mean by that is we play mind games with ourselves and, make excuse, whatever it is, right? I don't know. And I don't have clear, but stop it. You know what to do. And I believe that you'll have the right next step to show up in the way that you're meant to.
The world needs what you have to offer. As my friend Sebastian Rusk says, shout out Sebastian, who are you to keep it from them? There you go. Trust your voice. Melissa, thank you so much for being part of No More Mondays.
Thank you for having me, Angie.
This is a fantastic conversation about what it means to just show up, trust your voice, trust yourself, Stop holding back. The world needs what you have to offer. Don't leave that impact on the table, everyone. Melissa, thank you again for this conversation. For all of you out there, if this resonated or sparked some interest, reach out to Melissa, reach out to me, share it with somebody else who might need to hear it and know that their voice matters. And if you're ready to make some more change and take ownership of your life, don't forget Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries is available now wherever books are sold. Find out more at scarygoodread.com. Until next time, here's to fewer Sunday scaries and no more Mondays.